Welcome to the Hobby Nonsense Podcast. This is Jesse Gibson. I am your host, and this is our official episode 3 of Hobby Nonsense, where we talk about all things non-sport cards and collectibles. And today's episode is going to be fun, but it's going to be a little different. So I don't have a guest with me in studio, and it's going to be very not only educational for anybody who's wanting to know about non-sport cards, but what is a non-sport card? What does it entail? What does it include? Because a lot of people have different opinions on this, including some that don't feel that TCG, like Pokémon, Lorcana, things like that, should be included in the definition of non-sport cards. So today, Ryan Nolan, I'm going to go ahead and call him Expert Ryan Nolan, is joining the show to talk about not only what a non-sport card is, he's going to talk about a little bit more of the historical factor when it comes to some superhero cards. We'll also talk about, is the designation of rookie really applicable when it comes to non-sport cards? Because we talk about that when it comes to their first appearances, but it's usually used incorrectly is what we find out. Fun fact, I've already recorded this, and we're going to be flashing forward here in just a moment to the actual interview. But before we do get to that, I did want to give a few updates on some items relating to new products and some Pokemon updates, just because this is not really going to be a podcast. It's all about Pokemon, but I feel like in the first 2 episodes and now on this third one, it has come up, but it's only because this is such an incredibly hot time in the Pokemon market. Some are comparing this back to COVID Pokemon pricing, but in some cases, it's even higher than that. What's really going on at this last week was you had 2 big releases come out. You had Prismatic Evolutions, which is some new cards. They have Eevee, the character Eevee, and what they are deeming the evolution of her different forms across multiple different cards, specifically the Umbreon evolution of Eevee in that card set that is going for $1,500 for a raw card that you would just pull out of a box. That retail would go about $50, $55, but most people are selling them for around $150, $120. I got mine for $100. Thank you to Jason Shepard of Shep's Cards. But yeah, these are very, very hot right now, especially if you were to get some from the Pokemon Center. It's an online website where you can go and buy some of these cards. That has like a special designation on it, where that card, I've seen sales in the 5 figures, not graded, just raw. Granted, I think that was like the first one. I think some of the secondary ones have gone for like $4,000 and $5,000. It's insane. So that's why that's been so hot. But the other reason is because it's making like national news when it comes to TMZ picking up the story of Costco selling this new, or what they're saying will be the last reprint of Pokemon 151. It was a very popular set that came out a few years ago, or a year or so ago. Pokemon 151, this is supposedly going to be the last reprint. They're calling it Blooming Waters. And Costco had these boxes out for sale for about $45. They are selling right now online for about $120. So you could just buy it at Costco and immediately over double your money. So that's another thing that's going on in the Pokemon world. If you didn't see some of those videos, they actually turned kind of violent. I didn't feel comfortable showing my 10-year-old guys like throwing elbows into faces as people are trying to grab boxes out of other people's hands. Is especially entertaining to know that we got some, myself, my wife, and my daughter. We went down to Costco here in Middle Tennessee where we live, and we went on Friday. They had it different, though. They had a 2-box limit. All these other ones that you're seeing online there, it's just a free-for-all. Take as much as you want. But they had a 2-box limit. So we went in there, we got 2 boxes each, and we walked out of there safely, unharmed. It was very civil. So, I don't know where they're getting this craziness, but it wasn't like that where we were. But that is one of the reasons, again, why that event is causing more stirs in the Pokemon community. That's enough about Pokemon, though. Other news that is coming out, Diamond Comic Distributors. This is more as it relates to comic books, but that can have spillover into other parts of the card community. But again, this is about collectibles too, and that fits comics. But Diamond Comic Distributors was at one time the largest distributor and pretty much the only distributor of comic books. That changed around COVID times. They had kind of shut down, so some competition finally popped up. You saw Marvel and DC leaving Diamond Comic Distributors, so it's not as big of an effect as it would have been, say, a few years ago. However, it is still happening in the market. It is going to hurt smaller distributors, smaller comic prints. Now, granted, they are filing Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection to try and get their affairs in order as far as their finances go. So hopefully this will end up being okay, but for some of the smaller mom and pop shops, especially the ones that rely on them solely, which some still do, it will be lights out for some of them, unfortunately. The other news that's coming out is we've finally, and I say this because I am going to be breaking some of it, we're finally getting Star Wars Antiquities. This is like this big project they've been working on since around this time last year, at least, if not earlier. Topps is putting out Star Wars Antiquities, and we don't really have a ton of detail on it as of yet, but it should be coming out early February. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, what about X-Men? I thought that was like the big one that comes out before we get to February. I will say this, I haven't heard anything officially or really unofficially, but all I do know is we have not gotten anything as far as when that's coming out. So I'm thinking it may be getting pushed out a little bit. Now, hopefully it's not a lot, and hopefully I'm wrong. Maybe it's still coming out at sometime before the end of January. But at this moment, I haven't seen anything. And this release of Star Wars Antiquities comes out beginning of February, and we're already getting pre-sale for people who are going to be breaking it and things like that. So just keep that in mind. Hopefully we will have some more information on that very soon. As soon as I do, I'll be sure to relay that to you, the listening audience, of course. But I break on Fanatics Live some of these products. If you guys ever wanting to get in on those, check out the Sports Cards Nonsense. I know this is hobby nonsense that you're listening to, but the other podcast I do and where we've established a breaking community is Sports Cards Nonsense on Fanatics Live. You can come and check me out on there. Actually, because I got some of that Pokemon and I did get some Prismatic Evolutions, this coming Friday, I plan on doing a break on Fanatics Live with those Pokemon products as I wait for some of these Topps releases that are going to be coming out very soon. So hopefully you can come and check that out as well. Now then, so that brings us to our interview with Ryan Nolan. Guys, I think you're really going to enjoy this. Stay tuned because he's going to talk about not only what is a non-sport card, and I think you'll be surprised by some of it, but he's literally one of the smartest guys when it comes to this topic. And we're going to cover things that you probably were wondering about yourself, like what are sales on some of these? Should I go out and collect them? Could I even flip some of these? But there is definitely a active market. You just have to know where to look, and he gets into some of those details. So stay tuned. So here we are, episode 3 of the Hobby Nonsense podcast, and we have got Ryan Nolan of Breakout Cards, who has joined to graciously educate not only you, the audience, but myself included, because I consider Ryan to be maybe the smartest or most intelligent person as it comes to non-sport cards that I've met. Ryan, how do you feel about that introduction? I think I talked you up pretty good.
I mean, that's going to be tough to go through a whole episode now saying I'm the most educated.
Well, educated about non-sports cards. I don't know about like the rest of your professional life. I know that you do a lot of jogging and running long distances. I don't know what education goes into all of that, but what are you? Did you go to school? Are you like a Harvard grad or something?
Well, I have an electrical engineering degree, and I
dang it, I knew it. So. I knew you were a genius. Well, we're gonna keep it very layman friendly here on the show today. We're gonna try and keep the audience aware of what non-sports really means to not only Ryan but to a lot of people, because we have talked about a number of things on the first 2 episodes, but a lot of the last episode specifically was Pokemon, TCG. I want to start off with you by educating myself and the rest of the audience. What is a non-sports card? Because I don't think you agree that if this is a non-sport podcast, that Pokemon really should have been considered there.
Yeah, see, like I don't count TCG as non-sports. I count it as its own category. And like I do an eBay series of tops non-sports sales. I exclude that because I think TCG collectors kind of stay in their lane and collect either like a Yu-Gi-Oh or Pokemon or Magic the Gathering. And then when you go to the non-sports side of things, those type of collectors tend to branch out. So
you're telling me that TCG is not an option. You don't think that should be included in here. That should be its own separate category, right?
that is my opinion. I know some people are going to disagree, but I don't think that TCG should be included under like non-sports cards.
Okay. All right, Ryan. Now listen.
Categories.
That's fair. For the sake of this discussion between you and I, we'll leave it as non-sports cards does not include TCG. However, you, me, and the rest of the audience, we really know the truth, don't we, guys? Yeah. All right. Anyways, all right, Ryan. So tell us then, if that's not included in non-sport, what is included in non-sport?
Sure. So I try to break down non-sports into a few different subject matters. The first would be fictional characters. And this could be anything from like a TV show fictional character to movies. So you can think of something like a Mickey Mouse as a fictional character or any other type of television side of things, or even like a Superman or a Batman.
Okay. So fictional characters, that seems easy enough because that's obviously what you're going to see for a lot of people, especially if they're just getting into non-sport cards. They see like the tops releases of Marvel and Disney and the Star Wars releases. So that's pretty much a no-brainer. Okay, keep going.
Next, I would say entertainment. So this would be your actors, your actresses, someone that's a writer, like could be like a Mark Twain or Edgar Allan Poe. At the same side of things, you're musicians. And it doesn't matter what genre of music. You have music cards going back to the early 1900s, but what really been popularized anywhere from the 50s through 80s would be rock music, which that's what I personally collect.
Okay, so that is actually where I got into the non-sport side of card collecting, because up until Pop Century, when I first got introduced to that, I really only had like a few odds and ends. I know of many non-sport cards, but that's what really sucked me into this world of non-sport collectibles, which is the autograph of celebrities and like inscribed cards and things like that. That would you say, as far as like you've named the non-sport, you've named like fantasy characters, now you've named like entertainment, celebs, things like that. Is this also the order it would go in as far as like popularity in your mind?
So far, I'd say so. Although historical figures, which we'll talk about next, I think is getting close to eclipsing either one or two, just based off the popularity. What I'm seeing a lot right now is a lot of pre-war baseball collectors slowly trickling into the historical figure side of things. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but that would be my third category. I want to elaborate though. This was also my way of getting into non-sports cards. I first started trying to collect music cards of different types of bands. I love live music and go to a ton of concerts, and I especially like classic rock. So I was kind of interested a while ago, like, do classic rock bands have cards? And man, that was a rabbit hole.
What was the last concert you went to?
The last concert I went to was City and Color, and might not be too familiar with them, but the main singer is also one of the singers of the band Alexis on Fire.
Alexis on Fire does sound familiar to me, but again, yeah, it's not necessarily clicking, but it's okay. The audience may be huge fans, and is it newer, older band?
I'd say 2000s. They're more of like rock hardcore out of Canada.
Oh, okay. You strike me as someone who could pass as Canadian. Do you have any Canada in you?
I don't, but the funny thing is when I went over to the UK for a non-sports show, a few dealers thought I was Canadian.
Really? There's something in the voice. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know why. It's the Floridian accent from where I'm at. But a lot of Canadians go down to Tampa area for spring training. So I don't know. Maybe I picked it up somehow.
Okay. All right. So you got started in the music entertainment side of the non-sport collecting. All right, cool. Let's keep going. What's next?
So next would be historical figures. And this group, some collectors will actually split it up between presidents as well as historical figures, because there's so many people that will collect presidents. But you could have your presidents there. You have your historical figures, whether they're in like, entrepreneurship. You have your Vanderbilts, you have your JP Morgans, you have your inventors like Edison and Einstein. But then also You have historical figures across the world or military. There's people out there that want to collect the Napoleon cards. There's people out there that want to collect Caesar. So I kind of just bucket, are you a famous person that's not in entertainment? Yes, then you're a historical figure.
Okay, so would those be classified as pre-war, or is there a different name that those would go by when they're, of the prior to the 1900s?
Well, so pre-war in a baseball definition is anything before World War II, but there are people that collect historical figures all the way up through the 2000s. So I wouldn't really put a specific date on that historical figures bucket.
Okay, and when you're naming off some of these, like say Caesar or something like that, obviously cards weren't made when there was Julius Caesar roaming the earth. But say Vanderbilt or J.P. Morgan or something, were any of these cards actually around when they were alive, like to where they could like actually collect or autograph one of these cards?
Yeah, I actually brought JP Morgan to show you this right over here. And we'll talk about foreign issues and stuff like this. So this was a 1905 card of JP Morgan that was issued in Malta. Do you know where Malta is?
Malta, like in Europe, like around Italy,
Europe,
in the
around Italy, yeah.
Mediterranean?
Yeah, so that tiny island has a bunch of non-sports cards from the early 1900s. In fact, if you search up Malta cards, there's a researcher at Malta University, I think the main university of the island, that documented sets all the way from the early 1900s through the 30s and 40s.
That is so interesting. What do you think it is? Is there any documentation as to why Malta, of all places, would have such a affinity for card collecting?
Well, so the interesting thing about non-sports, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, is non-sports has been collected all across the world. As a hobby, I feel like we're very Americanized, especially in the sports side of things, minus, hockey being in Canada. But non-sports cards have been produced probably in 30 or 40 different countries, and they all have their own specific culture associated with it. I've met collectors from Germany that have over 1 million German non-sports cards. There's collectors in the UK that have 1 to 2 million UK focused cards. You can think of any larger country and they have cards. In fact, all 6 out of the 7 continents, I don't know if Antarctica has anything, produce cards.
Do any of them have the same kind of value that some of the cards here will hold? Like when now, granted, I don't know. I don't know how you feel about the fact that there was a modern Mickey Mouse that sold for $500,000 not too long ago. I believe it was from the 2023 Disney 100 Topps release. That card going for $500,000 was pretty astronomical in the world of non-sports. But let's even say dumb it down from there. Something in like the 5-figure range. Do they have some of these non-sport cards in other countries that are going for high dollar in that country?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example. The 1931 Mickey Mouse card that has Mickey Mouse and Walt Disney. That in a PSA 9 right now goes for about anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000, and that was a UK issue by a prominent manufacturer called Wills. Now, some people will say that this card is rare because it is a Pop 500 or give or take right now. And the non-sport side of things, a Pop 500 is a lot of cards. Now, in perspective of sports cards, you think Pop 500, people will say this is a low pop. But you got to understand that non-sports is such a small niche compared to sports cards. When you go into really pop reports on non-sports, you want to look for things that are like single digits or a little bit up in like the 10s or 20s. You'd classify that as a rare release. But the Wills Mickey Mouse card in a 9, I think there's 4 of them that are graded, and it's, anywhere from 30 to 50 grand.
Jeez, that's insane. There's only 4 9s, or there's only 4 cards graded?
No, there's only 4 9s. There's about 500 of those that are graded. If you want to go for a mid-grade copy, it's anywhere from like $300 to $600. Even when you get up there like 6s and 7s, they don't really skyrocket until you get to the 8 or 9.
Okay. You said that makes sense. All right. So, all right, we've talked about entertainment, fictional characters, and now historical / president. Honestly, I'll tell you, that's kind of what, when I think of non-sports, we've kind of like covered the majority of what I would think of when I'm collecting. Now, what are other subjects?
So I actually have 4 others on here.
Oh, so, okay. All right. Well,
you want to make a random guess and then we'll go from there?
Yeah, let me see. So historical figures, anyone famous, that would make sense. The only thing I can think of is like maybe, I've seen like fish. Like I've got some old tobacco cards, like fish animal cards, something like
Animals
that.
and fish. So there's actually quite a lot of collectors of those going back to the 1800s. There's people that spend crazy money on dog cards because they're just that popular, whether they have that specific dog or want to just collect dogs in general. There's a lot more than just dogs in general. You have also chicken, fish, horses. I mean, you can think of any type of animal out there. There's cards specifically made for it, but those four that I mentioned have specific sets by either Allen Ginter or other manufacturers.
Okay, so I was going to ask. So I know Allen and Ginter. That's the first thing that comes to my mind because I was just breaking some 2024 Allen and Ginter, and my daughter loves all the Westminster dogs. Like she's been collecting those, and then they've got animals as far as bees and things like that. I've got a golden lion tamarin and an SGC 10 right over my shoulder on the shelf behind me that I believe is a one of one, or at least at the time it was. I think it's valued at about $1 billion. But that's the real question, though. Like you could make a card about just about anything. Do any of these animals, like, do they hold much value? Like, is there big collectors?
So yeah, some of the different animal sets, once you start getting into 6s, 7s, and 8s, they go for a couple $100s each. Like,
really? Okay.
There's set registry collectors that want to have the highest Allen Ginter set or the highest dogs out there, and they really pay up. And some of the other like niche dogs and niche animals, since they're pretty scarce, like even common sometimes go between $30 and $50 a card. And that's some of the foreign issues, but also some of the American tobacco issues.
Wow. Okay. All right. So animals, and then all the other famous people, whether fictional or real. I'm trying, honestly, I guess just like inanimate objects at this point.
Yeah,
like
that's another one right there. That actually was next on my list. So there's a few different types of objects that you can think of. One of my favorite Allen Ginter sets out there, and I don't collect it, is Allen Ginter has a full set of different weapons. So it could be anything from like, knives and swords to guns. And they just have different historical figures, not historical figures, but different subjects out there having the weapons. And a lot of people actually collect those. They are some of them are kind of expensive, $50 to $100, even in low grade shape.
There's not anything that goes for like $1,000 in an inanimate card,
yes,
is there?
There is. So guess what? That also includes the Titanic. So the Titanic has a card that is pre-sinking.
Oh, wow. Okay. So that was like, it was made before the Titanic sunk. Is that what you're saying?
So the card specifically talked about the Olympic and Titanic, which were sister ships. Now, I don't know specifically which one is featured on the card, although it does mention both names. The ships have some small differences, but on paper, they're nearly identical. And this card in general, if you find it for like a 1 to a 2, you can pick it up anywhere from $300 to $500 based off of eye appeal. But once you get to that 3, 4, 5 grade, those are easily $1,000 plus.
Jeez. Wow. Okay. I don't know. Like, I'm trying to think like of space planets.
Well, let me tell you about some other objects, because there's others that are actually quite collectible. And that reminded me, I actually have the Titanic card here to the side just to show you. So this is what it looks like.
Wow. Okay. So it's like and for anyone who cannot see it, I know that's annoying, but fun fact, these episodes are going to be going up on YouTube. And who knows, this may be a clip that our social media guy may put out there, but it's an SGC2 of the Titanic, and it looks, it's like the size of an Allen and Ginter smaller like tobacco card or something like that.
Yeah. And this was a chocolate card by Cadbury's Chocolate, which I still believe they make to this day.
Oh, they still make the Cadbury still makes cards?
Well, not cards, but the chocolate itself.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, of course. All right. So is this, but that ship that's still under the inanimate objects. That would be, what did we say? So we've talked about 5 different categories now. Is that right?
We're on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But I did want to show also one other subject matter that's been really popular on inanimate objects. So right over here, this is the Statue of Liberty. And this is actually an Allen & Ginter card from the 1880s.
Wow. When did Allen and Ginter start making cards?
I believe around 1885 or 1886.
Wow. So that's one of the earliest ones.
Yeah. So their earliest sets, at least my assumption, is these views as well as the presidential set. They actually have a presidential set that looks like these. And for those not watching, these are like sepia tone. If you are familiar with old Judge baseball cards, it's very similar design. But that's when they started. These were pre the 88s and 89s that you typically see, like the white backgrounds that have the baseball players, boxers, and some other non-sports subjects.
So is there, I guess like were these popular at the time when they came out? Like were people collecting them back in the 1880s?
So the first actually like non-sports cards, or the first cards produced were non-sports. That started happening in the 1870s. When you think about like tobacco brands, and that was between the Axe and Bravo. They made a set of actresses. I think it's like late 1878 or 1879, somewhere around over there. And the actresses were the first, part of the 1880s, and then they slowly incorporated baseball cards. The first baseball cards being like 1886 Old Judge, and then you started seeing some of the other ones out there, Lone Jack. You started seeing Allen and Ginter, and they produced those for a while. And then there was like a dead zone of baseball cards until the Mayos took place in the mid 1890s. Then there was another dead zone until you really started seeing the 1903 E107s, and then you started getting into the American Tobacco Company. Again, we could literally talk hours about this side of things, so I'm going a little fast, and I apologize, but
No. It's perfect actually, because this is while I want to have you on for whatever we said, maybe 45 minutes or so. The idea that we could cover everything that you are knowledgeable about in this one episode is not happening. So we'll definitely have you back for future stuff. All right. So let's finish out what is a non-sports card. What's the next category?
so events.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So what's events are most popular is with wars, right? So like there's a lot of different cards of Lee surrendering for the Civil War, or there's Declaration of Independence, which by the way, some of those Declaration of Independence cards now fetch well over $1,000, $2,000, depending on what card it is.
If you had to make a guess, how many people out there are collecting event cards?
I'd say a decent amount on because there's a crossover between like historical figures and then events. Like if you think about if you're collecting George Washington cards, right? Are you interested possibly in the signing of the Declaration of Independence? Well, yeah, then you're collecting two different categories. If you collect something like the Titanic, would you be interested in other possible events? Well, someone collecting Titanic cards are going to cross over to that section.
But say like today, as far as these kinds of cards that we've been talking about, whether it's entertainment, well, actually, you know what? Let's just take out entertainment, both celebrity and fictional characters, because we know those are being covered, whether you've got Topps making any of the Disney, Marvel, Pixar, Star Wars, all that stuff. That's out. And we've got Pop Century from Leaf. We've got, what is it? Wild is making their own celebrity cards. So we know those are being made today. But are there like event slash, animal or inanimate object cards that are being made in the last, call it 20 to 30 years, some since the 90s, okay? Any cards since then of these subject matters of non-sports that are actually holding value, like the ones that we are talking about, like the Titanic cards or the JP Morgans or something like that go back, upwards of 150 years almost?
I would say maybe some American Pies, especially when you get like the number 76 parallels. Some of those probably fetch pretty well.
For anybody who does not know, American Pie is a set that came out by Topps that is very well known if you know the quote unquote Taylor Swift rookie card, which that's another subject matter that we've got to talk about.
We'll cover that later.
We'll cover rookie cards in non-sports, but 2011 is a great year because of the Taylor Swift / Kanye West card that's out there. But they have these parallels that are out of 76 that have this kind of diamondy sheen to them. They look really cool, but those seem to hold the most value of maybe more modern day event cards. Okay, that makes sense because I actually am aware of those. I know some people are collecting them, but you're saying then for the most part of these other subject matters that don't include real people, the value is typically in the older items, right?
Yeah, the pre-war side of things.
Okay, and that's good to know because just like in sports, in the non-sport world, you're going to have people that are collecting for themselves, but you're also going to have guys who are out there trying to make a buck, trying to flip something. They want to go out and find, hey, if I go buy this product, is there a chance I could hit something big and flip it out there for the non-sport community? And they probably don't want to be chasing after, the box of Golden Lion tamarins and rhino cards and zebras and all of that kind of thing if they're maybe not going to hold much value. So, all right. So that gives us an idea. Did we cover all the subjects or is there anything else?
So I have one that's just a miscellaneous category because There is other subjects out there, and I just felt like they should be bunched together. So this could be anything from like flag cards. So one of the really popular subjects right now is American flags. There's a lot of collectors that want the 1800s American flags or, rare overseas issues on that. Well, where do you bucket that in that list? You really can't. The same side of things goes towards city flags as well as state flags. I will say anytime I get state flag Allen Ginter cards, they sell easily anywhere from $15 to $25 in low grade. Because, like, for example, I live in Florida. Someone in Florida wants to get an Allen Ginter Florida card and keep it in their collection.
Okay, so then if you are someone looking for cards like this, is miscellaneous, like how do you search for that online or anywhere?
Well, I just start searching for like U.S. flag Allen Ginter card and start learning from there. I mean,
So
because
you got to know specifically what you're looking for these other subject matters. Okay.
yeah, and I would even say like the miscellaneous bucket would have things like theories. So Einstein has a card in 1928 with has lightning striking twice on a train, talking about one of his early theories. There also in the set you have an apple falling from a tree, talking about Isaac Newton's theories. Like non-sports can essentially cover anything out there. You just have to research it and see if there is a set. Again, there's non-sports cards in 30 or 40 plus different countries. Chances are, if you want a specific card, even as niched down as a theory, it's out there somewhere.
That is so cool. Okay. Well, that's what I like about this non-sport world. Granted, when we get to like some of the more miscellaneous stuff, it's like, man, now it's like if everything has a card and I'm someone who likes cards because of not only what they represent, the nostalgia behind them, but also I like that they hold value. That's where I feel like as we push more into miscellaneous, we start encroaching on the, hey, this definitely has nostalgia, it definitely has some meaning, but we start pushing out the value side of it, because if everything has a card, how can anything have much value to it? But maybe I'm totally wrong. Maybe E equals MC squared is great.
Well, that's a different theory, but Einstein's theory still has value on it. A 5 sells for about $150.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so crazy. Okay. Wow. All right. Okay. So have we covered what is a non-sports card? Is there anything we're missing?
Well, we've only covered half of it. We only covered the subject matters. We didn't talk about what counts as a card, because that is its own subject.
What are you telling me right now? You're telling me that cards are no longer the cardboard rectangles that most of us know as cards?
Correct. Look, just counting on here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I have about 20 different types of cards that people classify as non-sports cards.
Okay, who are people? Who are the people that are saying something besides a card, which I thought I knew what a card was. Who are the people saying that these other things are also cards? Like, is this a well-established rule in the collecting community of non-sports?
Some people will agree, and the vintage non-sports. Others will disagree. Again, it depends on the list, right?
Okay.
Let's start from the top and go down. I think we can all agree your typical gum card or your tobacco card should be classified as a card in general.
Yeah, I mean they're the cardboard cards, right? Like they're just
yes.
All right, yeah, I would agree that a card is a card. That is fair.
Up next, how about trade cards from the 1870s or 1880s? So what would happen is different companies would reproduce the same exact card, but put their own stamp on it, whether they're trying to sell oil or they're trying to sell clothing garments, like anything along the lines. These would be classified as trade cards. Sometimes grading companies will grade trade cards. Sometimes they won't.
Would that almost be classified as a business card?
No. So it would have like a normal, like non-sports, I wouldn't say normal, but it would have like a non-sports design on the front. And then on the back, you would have a different issuer. You can think of like this in baseball, kind of like how T206s have different cigarette brands on the back, or like a 1916 M101. There's like 20 different brands that people would paste on the back.
Okay. All right. I think we can still accept that as a card then.
Okay. Next one. This is the one that's going to throw you for a curveball. Gum wrappers.
Okay. So here's my thought. Maybe I'm crazy. I would have said a gum wrapper is a gum wrapper and not a sports card or a non-sports card.
So I actually have one in my PC over here, and I actually collect some of these. So once you start branching out of the United States, what would happen in some countries is they would have their card sets as the specific gum wrappers, right? So over here, I have a Yuri Gagarin from 1961. He was the first man ever in space. And this is part of a set that Israel released and part of gum wrappers. The whole set is just different historical figures across the world, but literally gum was inside of this. And you can find JFK in there. You can find Marilyn Monroe. You can find Abraham Lincoln. Like tons and tons of historical figures were in there, but that's how they collected cards in this specific release. Another example would be Hischler gum wrappers that were issued in Eastern Europe. And these were issued from 1969 to 1970. And you had a lot of different prominent bands in there. You would have Jimi Hendrix in there. You would have Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, and it's a full set of 100. There's even a poster talking about collect all 100 gum wrappers.
So gum wrappers they are made of paper and they have the design of a non-sport on there. That could also be said about a non-sports card. I guess right now, I feel like we are on the fringe of what a non-sport card is. Like I could say, okay, they both took a tree to be cut down to be able to be made. They are in similar shapes of rectangular shape, and they have content of non-sport. After this, I don't know if I could still agree, but all right, keep going.
Okay, now we're going to talk about two different types of stickers. So one of the things that's confusing for sports collectors once they go into non-sports is the term sticker. What does it really mean? Well, one definition of sticker is any card that could be pasted into an album. So Panini Cantantes, right? On paper, they're classified as sticker cards, but they're like traditional cardboard. What people would do is they'd have the full Cantante albums. There would be some type of sticker you could or adhesive that you would paste it right into the album. And that was normal for Panini cards back then. They're not technically stickers where you would peel them off and paste them, but they're traditional cardboard. And this also happened in other countries. Confirm on that side of things. You're good with that?
I'm good with that. Yeah, we're good with that. We'll accept that one easily.
Okay. Now here's the other one, which is going to throw you a little bit for a curveball. So this happened quite a bit, but there would be manufacturers that would create stickers and it would be okay to take off the backs and paste them into albums. So I'll give you two examples of prominent cards that are like this. So up first, we have a 1971 Bergman, which is the first known copy of a Jackson 5 card, right?
Oh, but okay.
On the back, you can see the back is gone because this was pasted into an album at some sort. Now, these are like impossible to find with the original back. And CGC is the only one that grades them without the back. PSA and SJC reject them. But in my eyes, they still should accept them and just give them an authenticity grade. Because if you look in like vintage baseball and all the different types of Cuban releases or Venezuelan releases, people still paste cards into albums. Even going to T206 cards, you know how many album finds there are out there where people paste them in? It's not uncommon for the hobby. So there's that side. Then you have a card like this, the 1986 Metallica, the first band images over here. And this is going to fall into two categories on this one, right? So this is one that someone could also take off the back. I actually have the original back. But what's also interesting on this as a non-sports card is this card was folded in half and then inserted into a pack. And that's not the only brand that did that. In fact, if you go back into pre-war cards, there's a few different manufacturers that literally take the card, fold it multiple times, and insert it into a pack. Grading companies, they always will try to grade these as ones, some exceptions in other brands. But I would classify that Metallica as a card.
So, yeah, I mean, that's still like a sticker card though, right? Like it's kind of in the same category. The fact that what's throwing me more is the fact that they are selling these as, hey, here's a picture, but we're definitely going to put a crease right through the middle and the side of it. And that's just how you're going to enjoy this piece of content that we're selling with your gum or whatever else they're putting these stickers in with.
Well, it gets better because now you also have multi-part cards. So I don't know if you've ever seen it before. There's like I think it's 95 or 97 of Green Day where they have 3 sections of a card you have to put all together, or the Kurt Cobain card from 95 Panini where it's literally half and half.
I have that one. Well, I had that one. I ended up giving it away to, I think it was a friend, or maybe it was like a giveaway to someone else. But I did have that Kurt Cobain card, and it was very cool. The only thing that stinks is once it's graded, it's like you can never put them right next to each other anymore because you got the outside of the case.
But that's very common in 80s Brazil music cards. Like they would have multi-part cards. People would take off the backs of these cards, paste them into the album, and get a full picture on there. But in my opinion, I'd classify those still as cards, right?
Do those still hold like value for many collectors out there? Because I think a lot of people are like, well, a card is a single thing, not necessarily a puzzle, right? Like a puzzle is something I have to put together to see the final picture. This is not the same as my normal card because I have to put multiple of these together to see the Kurt Cobain or whoever it may be.
I'd say more the modern side of things, like even the Kurt Cobain and stuff like that. It's not technically a modern card, but like the 90s stuff, I agree with you. They don't hold as much value. But once you go back into like the 1930s, there are puzzle cards that are quite expensive. In fact, there's a whole set of Gangsters it's like an anonymous release, I believe, in the 1930s. And some of those cards go for like $3,000 or $4,000. They're just super, super tough.
Wow. Okay. Wow. The fact that you said 3,000 or 4,000, I thought you were going to say 100.
That's like a comp from 10 years ago, by the way.
Oh, well, but that's a point that we were talking about before we started recording, though, is some of these comps, like you can't really take that comp as, 100%. It could have 5-10x since then because the comps come up so rarely.
And that's what I was just trying to say, the point, like how rare some of these cards are in the 1930s or 40s. Like the fact that some of these cards sell for $3,000 or $4,000 5 to 10 years ago, what would they do in today's market? Which I feel non-sports has expanded quite a bit.
And that's a question that I would like to know too, is like, how does this side of non-sport collecting, I guess, grow at this point? Because there's so much of it that relies on vintage markets that basically I feel like you have to be at a card show to really even appreciate or even know that some of these even exist.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's part of the education side of things. From the non-sports, like historical and pre-war, a lot of these collectors are always trying to talk to others and try to figure out like, hey, does this person have a card? If so, what's the card? Oh, tell me about other cards in your PC. And I think one of the great things is once you get to the pre-war collectors is they share everything. People love sharing their knowledge. I think a lot of the knowledge is still stored away and not really public. But when you start talking to a collector on this side of things, they are super passionate. And what I found is in this space, a lot of people used to be sports card collectors. Maybe they're pre-war or vintage sports card collectors, and they got bored of it. And I'm not saying like sports cards is boring in general, but like when you go to like Topps cards in 50s through 70s, there's only so much out there. There's some foreign releases, there's some food and beverage issues that tend to be tough, but there's a finite amount. With non-sports, it feels like almost every week that there's some sort of new discovery out there, even though if it technically isn't a new discovery on paper, you might have discovered a new set and you want to really dive into it. And I think that's what really keeps that part of the hobby growing. You keep getting a dopamine hit every single week when you're trying to search for stuff.
So if that is the case, that it does rely on a lot of research and digging for some of these buried gems, what about like modern day non-sport things is there anything that holds much value in your eyes? Like, is there anything that you collect that would fall into these categories that we've been talking about?
I'd say probably the most modern card I have is 2002 Coachella music cards. I also have some Brazilian sticker cards from 2002. So I'll tell you the story about the 2002 Coachella. And this is back when Coachella actually had decent lineups, not compared to today. But in 2002, one of the concert promoters of Coachella, they made a full set of all the different artists that were performing that weekend. I think there's like 60 total cards. So one of the cards that I have is the Foo Fighters from 2002, which is one of the first Foo Fighter cards out there. I also have Queens of the Stone Age in that set. I want to say Oasis is in that set too. I don't have Oasis, and the Strokes is in that set. And I don't have the Strokes yet. And there's probably a few other bands I probably should go after. But I just think it's really cool that not only were these cards distributed at the festival, you have to think about, storing that card. How does, like, you're at a Coachella, that card is going to most likely be destroyed. And also it showed the lineup of like who's playing each day, who's going to keep that card. But the grading companies do grade them. And luckily enough, I do have the Foo Fighters. I know someone that recently got a 10 on that card, which is so impressive.
If you are sending these cards into a grading company and there's a grading company that grades them, then it would seem that would be considered a card, right? But like, do you find that there are things that you consider a card that a grading company will not grade? You can't find a
Absolutely. There's stuff that's like black and white that these are cards that get rejected all the time. I'd probably say about like 10 to 20% of my orders I send to either like SGC or PSA get rejected, just because they don't have enough information to slab it or they're just not comfortable with it, which I know the cards are authentic. I know where I source them from, but I understand their perspective of like, we don't have enough information because some of the stuff isn't documented anywhere online.
Really? Wow. And yet you found it just from like talking to people or being at these shows or what?
Kind of just talking to people.
So here's the thing. This is all great. This is good and it's fascinating, but I also am finding myself like, okay, but I want to collect things that I care about and I care about, and I think a lot of the listeners care about, like some of the stuff that they've been making new versions of that do hold value, like superhero cards. And you said that the superhero cards that are coming out now, that's good and fine, but there are other superhero cards that some people don't even know exist that are much earlier than what many deem to be like a rookie version of, say, Superman or something like that.
Correct. Yeah. Do you want to go through a few of them?
Yeah, let's just hit a few of them real quick because I would like to know, but at the same time, I feel like we've been so far past in the history of these cards. I feel like we're going to overwhelm the audience, but yeah, I want to know.
One other thing I was going to say, well, there's still other cards, and we'll make this as a part two, but for like exotic shapes, check out this ABBA card that looks like a trapezoid. Exotic shapes are pretty common in non-sports side things. You'll see die cuts of like historical figure heads, but I just wanted to show you like, it's not always going to be a rectangular card. And I also have a bunch of circle cards and things like that. So non-sports, just to say in general, way different than sports cards. You can't apply the sports card philosophy to non-sports.
You know what? I feel like if the audience does not know that at this point in time, they were not listening to the rest of this podcast. But yes, all right, fair enough. It is not the same as the sports card world. All right, so hit me with like a little bit of knowledge as far as, do you have both information on DC and Marvel cards that may or may not be well known?
Yes. So we'll start off with the Batman. When do you think the first Batman card was produced?
Well, I'm going to assume I'm wrong, but the one that I think about the most is the one we've talked about on the pod in one of the earlier episodes. I think the first one was the 1966 Topps Batman with the red background and all that.
So they had a 1936 Batman card, and that Batman card sold a few years ago in a PSA 1 for $5,000. I believe the set was called Strange But True Stories, and it's a 30s release of just like kind of weird oddball stuff. And they have a card in there, which is the last card in the set, called The Batman. And probably in today's market, it's probably a $10,000 plus card if it sells above a 1.
1936, so 30 years prior to the 1966 Batman. You've got this one that's selling for $5,000. You said as a PSA 1
a few years ago. Correct.
Wow. Okay. So 1936 Batman. I'm making a note of this to look it up later. All right. That was the first appearance of Batman on a card. What else would there be?
So Batman had a sidekick called Robin, and his first appearance on a card was 1949.
Oh, okay. Robin. Okay. 49. It's weird he didn't have one until then, but 1949 is Robin's first one. All right.
All right. Now let's talk about Superman. So a lot of people think of the 1940 Gum Inc. card number 1 as the first Superman card. However, talking to a few other collectors in the non-sports side of things, the novelty candy set from 1940 was actually issued first. Are you familiar with the novelty candy ones?
Novelty candy? No, I don't think so.
So they have a coupon header card, right? Which typically you'll see this either cut off with the coupon at the bottom or fully intact. That is what a lot of people would call card number 1 in that set. But then you also have a full set of Superman cards after that as well as part of the novelty candy. But those were issued before the Gum Inc. ones were. So 1941 Superman Junior Defense League. Again, these are kind of like coupon cards where you can either have them fully intact with the coupon or they'd be cut off, which is another type of card you'll typically see. There's some in sports card side of things with like Z-Nuts and things like that. And Z-Nuts, if you're not familiar with them, are baseball cards out of the Pacific Coast League, has the first Joe DiMaggio card. Not to go down that rabbit hole, but Superman number 1 in Junior Defense League back in 2015 sold for $1,600 raw, which looked like would be a PSA 1 shape.
Really? Wow. Okay, so there is obviously a pretty decent market when it comes to superhero original stuff.
It's a crazy market once you get into the rare stuff. Like, not to say the gum ink isn't rare because like it is a tougher card to source, but they will sell 2 or 3 times a month. Like they're always out there. There's at card shows as well. But like when you get really into like the pockets of super, super rare cards, people pay up for it. And look, this is probably embarrassing. I don't know the differences between like DC and what was the other one that you mentioned?
Marvel.
Marvel. I don't know all the differences, which I'm gonna get
You've
roasted for
packed
that.
your brain filled with German and Australian non-sport cards from 1837, and now you don't know anything about Spider-Man and Superman differences. That's
I
fine.
don't.
That's okay.
But I will say there's a 1980 Wolverine sticker card. I think it's out of Brazil, and 10, I believe, sold for like $10,000 or something like that. And that's the first appearance of Wolverine.
Really? You said 1980?
Yeah. So here's the name of it. It's called Marvel Terabusi, and I believe there's probably others in that set as well. Just looking up some comps also, I'm just grabbing it straight from the PSA website, so I'm not using any tool or anything like that. So most recent sale prices, it says a 9 sold for $600, another 8 sold for $800, a 7 $815, a 6 $305. And there probably is, again, other stuff in that set. I haven't fully explored it, but someone reached out to me once because they're like, are you familiar with this card? I personally wasn't. So I'd assume there's some others in that set that go pretty well.
All right, so then let's cover one more topic for the day. We've got so many other things to talk about, but we'll cover the rookie debate. So obviously we are used to using rookie as the way to determine what the first appearance of a sports player is on a card, and typically there's an RC logo or something like that. But when we're talking about non-sports cards, they still use the term rookie oftentimes to denote the first appearance of that person, even though it sounds like basically everything we believe is a rookie has a previous print to it. So what's the alternative, I guess, but also is that okay to use rookie as the term for their first appearance?
So it's a dual-edged sword, right? Like, how do you define someone's first appearance, and then how do you define that is correct? So like in the terms of the Batman, right? Someone says 1966 Batman is a rookie, but obviously there's a 1936 card. Now, do most people know that 36 exists? Probably not, right? And that's why it's a super niche card. What would you consider the rookie card, right? Again, with Robin, 49 versus 66. The majority of the hobby knows about the 66 card, but there was a 49 card a little bit earlier. What's tough about non-sports is so much of it's kind of undiscovered still, even as of today in 2025, that when the hobby says, oh, this is a rookie card, chances are that subject matter may have an earlier card. And what happens at that point, right? The whole hobby says, oh, well, this is the rookie. Well, what happens if there's 3 or 4 other cards a little bit earlier? Pretty prime example of that, and even an error that's happened in our hobby, is the 1969 Michael Jackson card. So there's a 1969 card that's been classified by both PSA and SGC as 1969. Now, one of their 2 researchers messed this up because this album was produced in 1973, and the photo has been matched, I believe, like 72 or 73 as well. But they label it on a slab as a 69, and there's sellers at shows or on eBay that say this is the Michael Jackson rookie card. Well, reality, it's a 1973 card. Between 69 and 73, Michael Jackson had cards in the Jackson 5, and then he had solo cards in 72. So is that 69 card truly the rookie card? But then you have the debate of, is the Jackson 5 Michael Jackson's rookie card because he was part of the group? Or do you count the first solo card of Michael Jackson? And just to show you another music example, right? Think about Pink Floyd. Pink Floyd's first card is a 1969 Bergman. But the one problem about that card is David Gilmour did not join Pink Floyd when that card was produced. Gilmour's first card with Pink Floyd was 72. When you think of Pink Floyd, you think of Waters and Gilmour. So as a collector, are you chasing the 69, which is the first card that has Pink Floyd on there, or do you chase the 72, which has Gilmour? Fleetwood Mac has had multiple lineup changes. Their first cards are in 1970, but then 1979 Universal has the first full band, all of them on there. So how do you classify a rookie card? Like in non-sports, do you count the first solo card? Do you count the first group, the first appearance? Also, you have albums. Like Metallica had album cards out of 84, but the first band pictures were in 86. The Cure had earlier album cards out there, but the first Robert Smith card was in 1984. There's just so much out there to really like debate about, and there isn't really like a set of rules.
I think when it comes to the rookie designation, as far as non-sports goes, I think we've come to the point where it's majority rules in a lot of cases, and we just designate it as a rookie because that's what it's known to be for the vast majority of people out there. It's kind of like how we are all calling the 1986 Fleer Michael Jordan the rookie card when there's already been established that the 1985 star Michael Jordan card would have technically come earlier than the 86, and therefore shouldn't we stop calling the 86 its rookie? But it's become so well ingrained in the community of collectors that we are calling this or designating it as as a rookie, that it's just what it is, even though we're using that term kind of loosely, I guess. Like, I don't know if that's acceptable or not, but that's kind of what it seems like the hobby does.
Yeah, and it's tough because like there is a lot of wrong information out there. Another example is PSA has graded a bunch of 1952 Dutch gum cards of Elvis Presley. Well, the problem was Elvis had his first song in 1954. How is he going to have a full set dedicated to him in 1952? And then the problem is someone latches on and says, this is a rookie card. Someone joins the non-sports space and says, oh, I'm going to get a 1952 Elvis rookie, spends $800 on a card, and then finds out, oh, this card was actually a late 60s release. See where the problem starts happening on that side thing, or a dealer will lie to someone.
You're saying this would be an issue too, because in the space that we're talking about, some of these cards come up so rarely that someone could be taken advantage of because they can't just go easily check the comps and see like, oh, this is what this is selling for because maybe it doesn't come up in any recent sales. Okay.
And also the same side is like, because grading companies are reluctant to grade a lot of different sets that they aren't familiar with, someone will say like, and this happened in the past, the 95 Nirvana is the rookie card of Nirvana. Nirvana has 5 cards pre-1995 that are significantly rare. Some of them can be graded right now, some of them can't. But that shouldn't even be the deal. Like 95 Nirvana is not the rookie. There's earlier stuff.
The thing that I appreciate that some of the bigger card makers have been doing as of the last few years, and I'm thinking of Topps and Leaf, they've been putting out designations on the cards as far as like first appearance for a fictional character. I know like in Star Wars, some of the recent sets, they'll have like a first appearance designation on there, or in Pop Century, they'll have a note that'll be like first auto in that set. So you have an idea for, instead of an RC logo, they've got these like little alternative logos that'll say first appearance on there. So I like that we are doing something to try and fix this, but at the same time, yeah, I do understand that it does not seem to be the case for anything older than maybe 2020 or something like that. I don't think they've been doing that for anything modern, and definitely it sounds like anything vintage.
Yeah, I mean, it's super tough. And then you also have to look at, like, I think in the Star Wars set, there's multiple subjects on one card versus their solo cards. What do you count as the first card in that matter? Then you also look at actors where they have a card of them solo in a set versus a card of them being the actor maybe a year later, a year or two later, like Sylvester Stallone. His first solo card is possibly 1976 Fans, but then he has a 1979 Topps Rocky 2. A lot of people consider the Rocky 2 the rookie card, but he has the card earlier from 1976. So what happens in that case?
Okay.
There's just so much like uncertainty about non-sports that when people fix the rookie card label to a card, like something's bound to happen. Like someone's going to get scammed, whether it's today or later in the future.
So what you're saying is take all, especially vintage, but take all non-sport rookie designations with a grain of salt.
Correct.
All right.
Go after the card that you want. Go after the rare card. Like try to talk to as many collectors as possible. And also don't believe what's on the slab because those years are horrible. And I don't know where the research is coming on that side of things.
I'll tell you, this has been eye-opening, especially as it comes to the history of cards. Because I mean, I thought of this when we started talking, it would be what is a non-sports card? And that is definitely going to be in the subject matter of the byline for the podcast, but it's also got to be the history of non-sport cards, because I feel like we've covered so much. And what's crazy to me is I know you're probably itching to point out that there's so much that we did not cover.
Oh, there is. That's why I put these notes. I put check marks and what we didn't do. So when we have a round two, I will talk about some of this other stuff too.
Well, I would love to do that again at another time, but this has been great, Ryan. I really do appreciate it. Tell the people where they can find you and your content, what they want to know about in the future.
Yeah, if you guys want to check me out, I'm Breakout Cards on YouTube. I do have a monthly non-sports series where I cover the top 25 sales. Beyond just saying the top 25, I try to talk about the history of the card and different things like that. So you will learn every single month if you watch those videos. I'm also working on a decade series where I'm documenting the most expensive cards in the 30s, 40s. Right now, I'm working on the 50s video, which should be out pretty soon. And I'm also doing individual subjects. So next month, I have Einstein as well as George Washington out. Those videos take a ton of time to produce and try to get the facts right. So they're not always a weekly episode, but I try my best to get them out.
What was maybe one of the most expensive non-sport cards that sold last year in 2024? And I know you're not going to count the Disney 100 Mickey Mouse. Well, actually, tell me why you wouldn't include that one in there. Or would you? Maybe I'm just assuming.
That would be one of the most expensive non-sports cards. I mean, the fact that it sold for 500,000 is great for non-sports. I'm not going to be out there saying, well, it's modern, so it shouldn't count. No, I think that's awesome. The other Disney one that sold was the 31 Wheels that sold pretty expensive. There was a 66 Batman and a 9. I want to say that sold for like, what was it, 10 or 20,000? What really surprised me though for a non-sports sale, they had an 1869 praying of Abraham Lincoln. And we're not going to go into this whole praying discussion today because that's a rabbit hole in itself. But regardless, a 6 sold for $18,000. I did not think it was going to even get close to 10,000. The original guy who had it told me he thought it was going to get 10,000. I'm like, you're crazy. Sold for 18. Congrats to him on that one. But it is a tough card to find.
All right. Hey, thank you again, Ryan. We really do appreciate you coming on, man.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me. And, I wanted to do this for a while, so I'm glad I was on.
And that'll do it for Hobby Nonsense. Guys, thank you so much for listening. And please remember, if you have not subscribed to this podcast, it helps a lot as far as supporting the show. But not only that, we are now putting out clips, videos, short form and long form, the full episodes on YouTube. So any help there, like, comment, subscribe, those are all big helpers when it comes to the social media stats and things like that. So thank you. And please feel free to comment. Let me know what you like, what you don't like, what you want to see more of, or maybe less of, and we can change things up as we go. Because again, this should be fun. It should be educational. It should be something different that we don't see in the hobby all that much, is to cover this non-sports side of things. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. We'll see you on the next episode. Bye-bye.